Mwajuma Salum. I work for University of Arusha in Tanzania. I'm also a professional research fellow working on a project titled Legal and Regulatory Accountability for Water Pollution in Tanzania, the case study on Msimbazi River in Dar es Salaam City. Next slide. My research basically focuses on Msimbazi River, which is one of the highly polluted river located in Dar es Salaam City, one of the, actually the biggest city in Tanzania. Unfortunately, Msimbazi River used to be a potential source of water for local communities around it, but with human development over 3 decades, the river has been heavily polluted by discharge of industrial waste, but also discharge of household waste from the households which are located around it. So my research basically revolved around 3 questions. The first one was to find out what factors really make accountability weak. And the second one was how legal accountability mechanisms ensure inclusiveness of all the marginalized groups, such as women and people with disabilities. And the last research question was to find out what are the best accountability mechanisms and accountability strategies which can be applied by the duty bearers to improve accountability for water pollution. My research involved a total of 25 stakeholders, which included the duty bearers, regulatory authorities responsible for water resource management, but also involved citizens around Msimbazi River. And I conducted my field work for 3 months in Dar es Salaam City. Next slide. One of the key research questions, as I said, was to find out or to uncover what factors really constrained the regulatory authorities or the duty bearers in enforcing accountability for water pollution. During my field work, several factors were uncovered, but for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to cover only 5 factors. During interviews, the duty bearers mentioned political interference as one of the biggest factors which hinder them from holding into account the water polluters, especially the biggest polluters, the industries. There are instances where the evidence was there that the industries are actually discharging untreated wastewater into Msimbazi River and other rivers, but then some political officials would interfere by giving directives on maybe telling the industries to make improvements, but not necessarily making them pay for the damage caused. So as a result, the regulatory authorities become weak in enforcing one of the important principles of environmental management, which is any person or institution or an industry that pollutes environment, including water sources, must pay. But in some instances, as I said, when political officials interfere, the enforcement of the polluter pays principle becomes a little bit difficult. The other constraint stems from the legal frameworks governing water resource management and environment in general. Tanzania has various or several legal frameworks which guide water resource management and environment in general. But some of these legal frameworks actually empower more than one duty bearer to enforce sanctions. For example, we have Environment Management Act of 2004, and we have Water Resource Management Act of 2009, both of these acts empower regulatory authorities to enforce the polluter pays principle. So in some instances, it becomes like some sort of competition between duty bearers on who exactly or which institution is supposed to take the fine or who is supposed to impose the fine, especially on part of the big polluters such as industries. And sometimes that becomes as an opportunity for them, some duty bearers, to shy away from enforcement because they know they are not the only one responsible for enforcing such provisions. The other constraint, the third one, stems from sanitation. One of the important aspects for managing pollution is sanitation. But unfortunately, in Dar es Salaam city, only 10% of the population is covered with the sewer networks managed by the Dar es Salaam Water Authority. As a result, some stakeholders, especially the communities around the Msimbazi River, who are not able to pay for on-site sanitation, they actually resort to rivers as sources of discharging the household waste. So it becomes challenging for the duty bearers to enforce sanctions sometimes because the sanitation facilities and infrastructure are not adequate. The other constraint stems from reporting. This stems from the communities themselves, which have the duty to report pollution. But in some instances, some community members are part of the pollution. So it becomes challenging to report. They don't report because they also pollute. But the second reporting challenge stems from where to report. As I said, there are multiple regulatory authorities responsible for pollution control, responsible for enforcing sanctions. So citizens actually said that sometimes they are confused on where to report. Should they just report to their ward offices? And what if the ward offices do not do anything at the local levels? What else should they do? Should they maybe report to the regional levels or to the minister? So they are not really clear on where to report. So as a result, some citizens which have been active are also even thinking of like giving up because they're really confused. The last constraint is on monitoring, and especially monitoring industries which are discharging wastewater in Msimbazi River and also other rivers in Dar es Salaam city. The duty bearers actually say that one of the challenges that they face is lack of complete statistics on industries which are operating in Dar es Salaam city. So as you can see the image, a few years ago in 2016, government officials from the ministry responsible for environment conducted like some kind of visits on industries which are operating in Dar es Salaam city, and they found one of the industries was neither registered with the Environment Management Council for environmental impact assessment certificate, but also the industry did not obtain a water discharge permit from water basin. So, and this industry was not known at all. So this has been a challenge because there is lack of complete data on how many industries discharge wastewater into water bodies. Next. My second research question, the last concern is on sanitation. Of course, that one I've already talked about. Next. So the figure shows the accountability challenges which are stemming from the accountability cycle. The figure is borrowed from the Water Witness International. This is the conceptual framework on how to conceptualize the accountability cycle, consisting of 5 components over the 5 R's. As I said, some of the rules, the laws are not clear, so it becomes even confusing in enforcement, but also the responsibilities are overlapping among the duty bearers. And then when it comes to reporting, those who are responsible for reporting are not reporting, and sometimes they are not actually sure where to report. And when it comes to reviewing, the reports which are related to water pollution, some of the citizens claim that they are not even provided feedback on what is done to these big polluters and especially industries. And when it comes to response, of course, I said about political constraints get in the way in enforcing some of the sanctions. Next. My second research question was to find out how, to what extent do legal frameworks provide for inclusiveness of marginalized groups in water governance as far as pollution is concerned. One of the groups which are affected by water pollution, of course, is people with disabilities, but the legal frameworks governing water resources and environment are silent about the role of people with disabilities in decision-making related to water governance. But the laws only acknowledge the inclusion of women. Both the Environment Management Act and Water Resource Management Act provides that at least 30% of members of decision-making boards should be women. So the laws only provide for inclusion of women, but other marginalized groups are not actually included in the laws. Next. My last research question was to find out now what are the best mechanisms and strategies which can be applied by the duty bearers to strengthen accountability for water pollution. During fieldwork, both duty bearers and citizens proposed various mechanisms, but the leading mechanism was using the legal sanctions by making the polluters pay. But as I said, in some instances, the principle is not effective when political interferes. But interestingly, there are instances where when the political officials actually themselves are vocal about these industries, the polluter pays principle works. For example, in 2016, at least 3 industries were supposed to pay in combined amount of money, which is close to $35,000, because the political officials were vocal about these industries, and the political officials themselves ordered the regulatory authorities to make sure that these industries pay for the damage caused. So in a way, legal sanctions or legal enforcement can work better when there is political support. And then there are citizens' complaints. Of course, as I said, there is a challenge of citizens not reporting. But when citizens are vocal about pollution, it actually works to activate duty bearers to make them informed. But the other one, which is at the center, is evidence-based mechanisms. Duty bearers say that they respond with evidence because pollution requires evidence that the pollution actually takes place. So they cannot really hold the industry into account without evidence. When it comes to strategies, these mechanisms can work better when some strategies are applied. Of course, the first speaker from Uganda, Caesar, mentioned about political mobilization. which also applies in my case. As I said, when political officials are vocal, are active about the heavy polluters, the legal accountability mechanisms such as legal sanctions, they work effectively. But also the other thing is collaboration among duty bearers is very important. As I said, some of the responsibilities are done by more than one duty bearer. So it's important for duty bearers to collaborate, and especially when it comes to sanitation. The third one is, of course, inclusion of all stakeholders, including citizens, civil society organizations, industries, and duty bearers. Thank you.